The air inside the lower levels of the Seoul subterranean rift smelled of ozone, rotting monobeasts, and damp concrete. For 10 long, excruciating years, the world had categorized Kale as an F-rank trash porter, a nameless human pack mule who carried extra mana potions and spare weapons for the elite raid parties of the Golden Sun Guild. While hunters clad in glowing mithril armor slaughtered mutated direwolves and collected millions in bounty checks, Kale walked 3 paces behind them, his back bent under a 300-pound rucksack, silently enduring their kicks, taunts, and deliberate cruelty. What neither the Golden Sun Guild nor the Global Hunter Association realized was that Kale was not weak by accident, he was weak by design. 10 years ago, when the system first descended upon Earth and granted every human a glowing blue status window, a glowing prompt had appeared before Kale's eyes. Daily login reward available, 1x basic iron supply chest. Claim now? YN, where every other human instantly tapped yes to claim their daily bread, copper coins, and low-tier health vials. Kale had paused. His keen, calculating eye had drifted to the microscopic fine print at the very bottom of the interface. Notice: unclaimed daily rewards compound at a rate of 0.1% per consecutive unclaimed day. If left unclaimed for 3,650 consecutive days, 10 years, the system memory buffer will trigger an automatic structural reindex. While the world chased immediate power, Kale chose absolute patience. For 3,649 days, he never tapped the butt. He lived as a level 1 civilian with baseline human stats, taking beatings, eating garbage scraps, and letting the entire world write him off as a worthless worm. Today was day 3,650. Hey trash, spat Captain Kang, a third-rank A-class fire mage wearing robes woven from flame salamander silk. Kang tossed a burning cigarette butt onto Kale's blood-stained boots. Stop daydreaming and pick up the cores from those shadowhounds. If you miss a single core, I'm leaving you in this dungeon as live bait for the boss. Kale didn't flinch. He didn't even look up at Kang's sneering face. He was looking at his private interface where a red countdown clock was ticking its final seconds. 000003000002 000001 00000. Critical event triggered. 3,650 consecutive unclaimed REWARDSDETCTED. System reindex commencing. Calculating compound multiplier. Baseline daily chest value. $10 \text copper coins plus 1 \text basic mana vial dollar compounded multiplier 1,000,013,650 plus exponential memory buffer overflow. 2.147 times 10 9 alert. System database capacity exceeded. Reindexing error. The standard reward vault cannot process this quantity. Administrative privileges granted to prevent system crash. Congratulations, you have unlocked the unique mythic class Interface Sovereign. Unspent reward inventory converted into raw system command authority. A blinding crimson light, invisible to everyone except Kale, burst from his chest and flooded his vision. The heavy weight of his rucksack suddenly felt like a feather. The constant ache in his malnourished bones vanished as his baseline stats underwent an instant silent rewrite. Hey, are you deaf, you worthless F-rank? Kang shouted, stepping forward and igniting a ball of searing flame in his right palm. I told you to pick up. The Kale slowly raised his eyes. For 10 years those eyes had been dull, lifeless, and subservient. Now they burned with a terrifying icy composure. Captain Kang, Kale said softly, his voice carrying an uncanny resonance that vibrated through the stone walls of the cavern. Your contract with the Golden Sun Guild dictates that all extractions are subject to a 70% guild tax, correct? What the hell are you talking about? Kang roared, thrusting his fireball straight at Kale's face. Die, you arrogant bug. Kale didn't move a muscle. He simply opened his mental command prompt. System command executed. Elemental friction set to 0% inside a 5-meter radius. The massive fireball instantly dissipated into harmless thermal mist the second it entered the boundary around Kale. Kang blinked, his eyes wide with utter confusion as his spell vanished as if it had never existed. What did you just do? Kang stuttered, taking an instinctive step back. I didn't do anything, Kale replied calmly, taking one step forward. The ground beneath his boots shattered under the sudden, silent surge of his new status. I just enforced the house rules. The dungeon cavern descended into absolute silence. The 5 senior party members of the Golden Sun Guild, all B-rank and A-rank veterans armed with enchanted gear worth millions, stared at Kale in disbelief. Captain, what happened? Did your casting fail? Asked Vice Captain Park, an S-rank tank wielding a massive tower shield crafted from black iron. I don't know, Kang hissed, sweat dripping down his forehead. There's something wrong with this trash. Kill him, all of you, execute him now. We'll report to the association that he was killed by a stray monster. The 3 Vanguard assassin-class hunters instantly vanished into the shadows, utilizing high-tier stealth skills. In less than half a second, they materialized behind Kale, 3 poison-coated daggers aimed directly at his spinal cord, throat, and heart. Kale didn't even turn around. Stat point allocation: reflexes plus 5000, spatial friction minus 100%. To the assassins, time suddenly grinded to an agonizing halt. The air became as thick as setting concrete for them while Kale moved with fluid, graceful precision. He pivoted gently on his heel, grabbed the nearest assassin by the wrist, and redirected the poison dagger directly into the neck of the second assassin. Before the third assassin could even process the sight of his comrade falling, Kale tapped his chest lightly with 2 fingers. System command: Kinetic Velocity Reversal. The momentum of the assassin's own jump was instantly inverted and multiplied by a factor of 10. The assassin flew backward through the air like a cannonball, smashing through 40 feet of solid granite wall before collapsing into a bloody heap of broken bones. Two A-rank assassins eliminated in 0.8 seconds, without using a single weapon. "Monster," Vice Captain Park gasped, his face draining of all color. He raised his black iron shield, activating his ultimate defensive buff, Immovable Mountain. A golden aura enveloped his body, boosting his physical defense stats by 500%. "Stay back, my defense is impenetrable. Not even an S-rank dragon can breach my shield in a single hit." Kale walked toward Park at a casual pace, hands resting calmly inside his worn, threadbare pockets. "Immovable Mountain Level 4, Kale observed, reading the floating blue text above Park's head that only he could see. "A robust skill. However, your defense calculation relies on the system treating your shield as a solid entity." Kale reached out his bare right hand and gently touched the surface of the black iron shield. System command, object classification override liquid state. In an instant, the 3-ton unbreakable metal shield melted into a lukewarm puddle of gray sludge, splashing uselessly onto Park's boots. Park stared down at his empty hands, his mouth open in a silent scream of absolute terror. "Now," Kale whispered, leaning in close to Park's ear. "What was that about being impenetrable?" With a simple flick of his forefinger against Park's forehead, Kale unleashed a fraction of his newly acquired kinetic force. Park was launched across the cavern, skipping across the stone floor like a thrown pebble before knocking Captain Kang to the ground. Captain Kang scrambled backward on his hands and knees, staring up at Kale as if looking at a demon crowned in fire. "What are you? You're not an F-rank, you're a high-tier regressor, an anomaly." "I am just a man who knows how to save," Kale said softly. He raised his hand, opening his compound inventory interface. "For 10 years you paid me 50 copper coins a day while taking millions for yourselves. Today I'm liquidating the interest." System command, mass extraction. A blinding white light swept across Kang and Park. In less than 3 seconds, every piece of enchanted armor, every high-tier weapon, every ring, necklace, and gold coin in their spatial bags was stripped from their bodies and deposited neatly into Kale's boundless inventory. Stripped down to their underwear, trembling in the cold dungeon draft, the elite leaders of the Golden Sun Guild could only watch as the worthless F-rank turned his back on them. "Live," Kale said without turning around. "Go back to your guild master. Tell him that the subterranean rift no longer belongs to the Golden Sun. Tell him Kale has claimed the deed." 3 days after the incident in the subterranean rift, the global hunter community was in a state of mass hysteria. The Golden Sun Guild, one of the top 5 megacorporations controlling South Korea's military and economic infrastructure, had lost control of the Seoul subterranean rift. Worse yet, rumors were circulating on the dark web that a single unidentified entity had stripped an entire A-rank raid team of their gear using non-combat system commands. Inside the luxurious top-floor penthouse of the Hunter Association Tower, Chairman Han sat behind a mahogany desk, staring at a high-resolution satellite image of the subterranean rift entrance. "Explain this to me again," Chairman Han said, his voice dripping with authority. "You're telling me the dungeon hasn't erupted but we can't enter it." Standing before him was the guild master of Golden Sun, Choi Jinwoo, an S-rank pyromancer ranked 4th in the entire nation. "The entrance isn't blocked by rubble, Chairman," Choi Jinwoo said through gritted teeth, his hands clenched into tight fists. "It's blocked by a wall of high-purity mithril, 400 feet tall and 50 feet thick." "Mithril," Han slammed his hand on the desk. "Mithril costs $50,000 per ounce. Where could anyone get enough mithril to build a 400-foot fortress wall?" "He didn't buy it," a cold voice echoed from the doorway. Both men turned sharply. Standing in the entrance of the office was Kale. He was no longer wearing the tattered rags of a porter. He wore a tailor-made, dark charcoal suit woven from shadow spider silk that shimmered with subtle purple mana. At his wrist was a sleek obsidian watch that subtly distorted the ambient light around it. "Who let you in here?" Choi Jinwoo roared, his body instantly erupting in flames. "Security." Kale walked into the room calmly, taking a seat in the plush leather armchair across from Chairman Han. He crossed one leg over the other and picked up a crystal glass of aged whiskey from the side table, taking a quiet sip. "System command, thermal suppression field." The moment Choi Jinwoo stepped toward Kale, the flames engulfing his body instantly froze, turning into solid, brittle red ice that shattered and fell to the carpet like harmless broken glass. Choi Jinwoo gasped, clutching his chest as his mana core felt as though it had been plunged into an absolute vacuum. My mana connection. It's gone." "Sit down, Master Choi," Kale said, his tone entirely devoid of anger, which only made it more terrifying. "We are businessmen here. Let's talk about market share." Chairman Han's eyes narrowed as he assessed the young man before him. He had seen thousands of powerful hunters in his lifetime, but none possessed this terrifying aura of absolute authority. Kale didn't radiate raw power like an angry beast, he radiated control like the creator of the world reading a spreadsheet. "You're the porter," Chairman Han realized slowly. "The one Kang reported, Kale." "Formerly a porter," Kale corrected smoothly. "Currently the sole owner and developer of the subterranean territory. As of 9 00 a.m. today, I've converted the low-level dungeon rift into a fully integrated, self-sustaining mana refinery and training sanctuary. Kale dropped a glossy black document onto the desk. Inside that folder, you will find the blueprint for a cold fusion mana generator powered by the compressed cores I harvested over the last 72 hours. It generates enough clean electrical energy to power the entire Seoul metropolitan area for 30 years at zero cost. Chairman Han picked up the document, his fingers trembling as he scanned the complex mathematical equations and runic diagrams. This is impossible. The technology to compress mana cores to this degree doesn't exist. It exists because I wrote the code for it, Kale said simply. And I am prepared to grant the Hunter Association exclusive distribution rights. Choi Jinwoo's eyes flared with desperation. And what do you want in return, you thief? You ruined my raid team, you stole millions in gear. Kale turned his head slowly toward Choi Jinwoo. What I want, Master Choi, is very simple. Kale stood up, buttoning his suit jacket. First, the total dissolution of the Golden Sun Guild. All assets, land holdings, and hunter contracts will be liquidated and transferred to my newly formed infrastructure firm, Sovereign Architect. Second, Master Choi, you will publicly apologize on national television for 10 years of illegal labor exploitation. Are you insane? Choi Jinwoo screamed. I am an S-rank hunter. I have the backing of the Ministry of Defense. You think you can crush me with a few fancy math tricks? Kale walked past Choi Jinwoo toward the floor-to-ceiling glass window overlooking the city. You measure power in ranks, Master Choi, Kale said quietly, looking down at the crawling traffic miles below. S-rank, A-rank, F-rank, these are just titles given to children playing in a sandbox. I don't play in the sandbox anymore, I own the sandbox. Kale raised his right hand and snapped his fingers. System command, regional infrastructure access key, Golden Sun Tower. Execute asset deintegration. A loud rumble echoed across the city skyline. 2 miles away, the 90-story glass spire of the Golden Sun Guild headquarters began to glow with a faint blue grid pattern. Section by section, the building's structural reinforcement runes dissolved into light, causing the entire top half of the skyscraper to gently detach and hover in midair, suspended by pure gravitational manipulation. Choi Jinwoo fell to his knees, staring out the window at his floating headquarters in utter horror. You have 24 hours to sign the transfer papers, Choi, Kale said, walking toward the door. If you don't, I will drop the top 40 floors of your building directly into the Han River. 22 hours after the confrontation at the Hunter Association, a cataclysmic event struck the Asian continent. Without warning, the skies above East Asia turned a dark, bruised violet. The temperature dropped by 40 degrees in less than 10 minutes. The global system interface broadcasted a red warning banner across the screens of every human being on Earth. Global emergency, cataclysmic rift opening. Class SSS rank world-ending event, the endless winter abyssal gate. Locational epicenter, Seoul, South Korea. A blizzard of terrifying proportions swept through the streets of Seoul. Howling winds carrying sub-zero mana tore through electrical grids, instantly freezing power plants, water supplies, and transportation lines. Cars froze in their tracks. Skyscrapers were covered in 3-foot layers of black ice, and low-rank hunters collapsed in the streets, their blood frozen solid inside their veins within seconds. Inside the emergency bunker beneath the Capitol building, government officials and high-ranking hunters huddled around emergency heating artifacts that were sputtering out one by one. The temperature is dropping past degrees C, and technician yelled over the blaring alarms. The heating magic isn't working. The mana in the air is frozen. Where are the S-rank hunters? The Minister of Defense screamed. Where is Choi Jinwoo? Choi Jinwoo attempted to engage the abyssal gate at the city border, Panic Captain reported. His pyromancy flames were snuffed out instantly by the ice blizzard. He's currently unconscious with 4th-degree frostbite. All military defense lines have collapsed. The minister fell back into his chair, staring at the radar map. The blue wave of absolute freezing cold was expanding rapidly, set to swallow the entire country in less than 2 hours. Is there nowhere safe, no shelter with heat? A young radar operator suddenly sat up straight, pointing at his screen. Sir, look at Sector 4, the subterranean rift area. On the thermal satellite feed, while the entire Korean peninsula was painted in deep, fatal shades of dark blue and purple, Sector 4 shone like a brilliant, burning sun. In the center of the frozen wasteland, a massive dome of golden thermal light had expanded across a 5-mile radius. Inside that boundary, the temperature was a pleasant 22 degrees C. Trees were green, grass was blooming, and clean water flowed through freshly constructed stone aqueducts. What is that place? The minister demanded. It's the Sovereign Architect territory, the operator stammered. Kale's domain. Outside the Golden Dome, thousands of desperate citizens and fleeing hunters slammed against the shimmering barrier, crying out for rescue as the black blizzard roared behind them. Standing atop the 400-foot mithril wall surrounding his territory, Kale looked down at the freezing masses. Beside him stood his newly appointed operations manager, a former low-rank healer named Suah, whom Kale had rescued from the Golden Sun Guild scraps. Boss, Suah said, wrapping her heavy coat tighter around herself despite the warmth atop the wall. There are over 50,000 people outside the gate. The temperature out there is dropping to minus 80 degrees C. If we don't open the barrier, they'll all die in 20 minutes. I know, Kale said calmly, watching the howling vortex of black frost swirling in the sky above. Are we going to let them in? She asked, her eyes full of anxiety. Do we have the food, the shelter? Kale pulled up his compound construction interface. Territorial inventory reserves. 10 million tons of synthesized grain, 500,000 subterranean geothermal heating units, 100,000 automated construction golems. We have enough resources to feed and house 10 million people for a century, Kale said quietly. I didn't hoard for 10 years just to watch humanity freeze. Kale raised his hand, sweeping his arm across the horizon. System command, expansion of domain boundaries, radius 50 kilometers. System command, deploy automated base building infrastructure. Boom, a massive shockwave of golden thermal energy erupted from the mithril wall, tearing through the black blizzard like a white-hot blade through butter. The 50-foot-thick ice sheets covering the streets instantly sublimated into harmless steam. As the golden dome rapidly expanded across the entire city of Seoul, the ground beneath the frozen streets began to shift and rebuild itself. Massive, three-story stone residential complexes, equipped with integrated geothermal heating runes, rose from the earth in orderly, perfect rows. Automated iron construction golems marched out from the subterranean gates by the thousands, lifting citizens out of the snow and placing them safely inside warm, heated shelter units. In less than 10 minutes, a desolate, freezing war zone was transformed into a bustling, warm, hyper-efficient metropolis. Standing in the center of the newly erected Central Plaza, thousands of rescued citizens stared around them in sheer, speechless awe. The children who had been shivering moments ago were now running around in short sleeves, eating fresh, hot bread distributed by Kale's automated supply drones. High above them, floating in the sky at the edge of the abyssal gate, Kale looked up at the giant, mountain-sized ice demon sovereign emerging from the rift. The creature's eyes glowed with blue death, its breath capable of freezing oceans. Human worm. The ice sovereign's voice boomed, rattling the atmosphere. You dare interfere with the abyssal domain? Kale didn't draw a sword. He didn't chant a spell. He simply unbuttoned his cuffs and rolled up his sleeves. You're trespassing on my real estate, Kale said softly, and I don't give extensions on rent. The ice demon sovereign roared, a sound that cracked the very sky. It raised a massive fist composed of glacial ice and compressed dark mana, bringing it down toward Kale with enough kinetic force to flatten a mountain range. Attack incoming, glacial extinction impact. Estimated structural damage, 100%. Down on the ground, the surviving high-rank hunters, including Choi Jinwoo, who had been brought into the safe zone on a medical stretcher, stared up at the sky in absolute terror. It's over, Choi Jinwoo whispered, his voice trembling. That's an abyssal sovereign-class monster. No human skill, no hunter spell can withstand a direct hit from a god-tier entity. Kale stood suspended in midair, right in the shadow of the falling glacial fist. He calmly raised his right index finger, pointing it directly at the heart of the colossal monster. Executing system command. Unspent reward buffer conversion. Target, abyssal sovereign core. Action, universal attribute nullification. A microscopic beam of black light shot from Kale's fingertip, piercing through the miles-thick ice fist and striking the glowing core inside the demon's chest. For a second, nothing happened. Then the giant monster stopped mid-strike. The terrifying dark aura surrounding its body suddenly flickered like a dying candle. The deep, icy blue glow in its eyes vanished, replaced by an expression of pure, unadulterated shock. Notice, target entity's level reduced from level 999 level 1. Notice, target entity's physical density reindexed to match common snow. What did you do to me? The ice sovereign gargled, its terrifying voice suddenly sounding thin, high-pitched, and fragile. My mana, my divine authority. Where is it? I reindexed your status, Kale said, drifting closer until he was standing inches from the monster's giant, frozen snout. In my domain, your rank doesn't matter, your level doesn't matter. The system obeys the administrator, not the user. Kale gently placed his palm against the side of the monster's giant head. System command, recycle material. Crack, the mountain-sized ice demon didn't explode, it didn't bleed. Instead, its colossal body broke down into billions of glowing blue mana particles, which were instantly sucked into Kale's hand and converted into pure raw energy. Recycling complete. Acquired 50 million high-grade mana cores. Territorial expansion fuel, max capacity achieved. The massive dark rift in the sky collapsed in on itself, vanishing into thin air as the sun broke through the clouds, illuminating the golden city of sovereign architect below. The entire city was dead silent. Millions of citizens, hunters, government officials, and foreign news correspondents stared up at the single figure hovering in the clear blue sky. A single F-rank porter had erased a world-ending threat in under 3 seconds with a tap of his finger. Kale slowly descended from the sky, landing lightly on the marble steps of the newly constructed Sovereign Central Command building. Chairman Han and the leaders of the 5 major guilds stepped forward, bowing their heads so low their noses nearly touched the stone floor. There was no longer any arrogance, no politics, no greed left in their minds, only absolute, unquestioning reverence. Sovereign Kale, Chairman Han said, his voice shaking with deep respect. On behalf of the Hunter Association and the nation, we surrender all administrative authority to you. Please, guide us. Kale looked across the crowd of thousands of kneeling hunters, the same hunters who 3 days ago would have stepped over his dead body without a second thought. He pulled up his private status window one last time. Sovereign domain status, Soul Zone fully consolidated. Global System Index, 0.001% explored. New option available, reindex global interfaces. Kale closed the window with a simple flick of his wrist and looked out toward the distant horizon, where thousands of other dungeons and abyssal gates still loomed across the globe. This was just the local branch, Kale said, a faint, cold smile appearing at the corner of his lips. It's time we go global.